But first, the federal government today unveiled its updated controversial My School website, enabling parents to compare funding levels for individual schools. The revamp has revived the old public versus private school debate, with the opposition claiming it's designed to slash funding to non-government schools. The government denies this, saying the update is about greater transparency and more information for parents. But some schools are already complaining there are inaccuracies in the data. A short time ago, I recorded this interview with the Minister for School Education, Peter Garrett, in our Canberra studio. Peter Garrett, you're promoting the updated My School website as giving parents more information on schools funding and how much is being spent on each child. But how does that give them what they really want to know, and that's whether the quality of education is improving?
Well, it gives them that information because it enables them to get a sense of the resources that are going into a school and that are available for the education of students. But Heather, My School 2's also got another really important piece of information as well, of course, which is what's described on the site as student gain, and that's monitoring the improvement in the testing on literacy and numeracy that's happening on NAPLAN, because for the first time we've got kids that did the NAPLAN test in 2008, again in 2010, we can then chart their progress, and so not only are people getting an insight into financial resources that go into schools for the first time ever, but they're also getting a sense of school performance as well. And these two things really do represent a significant additional enhancement to My School.
Well, what this revamp has indeed already done is reignite the fierce old debate about private versus public schools, in particular because this data shows that private schools are doing very well out of the government. Is that what you intended?
Well, no, not specifically. I mean, we completely understand that this is going to be a part of the greater transparency agenda, in that we will have debates about school funding. But My School is about empowering parents. It's about providing them with the opportunity to have information they've never had before about their kids' schools. And it's about enabling a discussion to take place, particularly between parents and schools, about school performance and student performance, and also a broader discussion about where we're heading with education. Now, I think it's a great opportunity for us as a country not to go down that road which people like Mr Pine seem to want to go down, of an arid debate about, one sort of school system versus another. We support funding to all education systems from the Commonwealth. So that's government, non-government, the Catholic sector, the small independents, the large independents. And our ambition, our goal, is to provide the quality education we think all students need, regardless of where they live, regardless of their parents' income. And we're supporting, and we have funding to support that already. Yes, we'll have a vigorous discussion about education and funding. We ought to have that, and that's why we've got an independent review that David Gonski's currently conducting for us, and he'll bring recommendations back to us towards the end of the year for us to consider. In the meantime, parents have got this information, and I think it'll be of great use to them.
Could this information and the review that you've just mentioned be viewed as laying the groundwork to cut back support to non-government schools down the track?
Well, again, absolutely not. I mean, everybody today needs to understand that providing this financial information and this student performance information on My School 2 is not only a step up in transparency, but it's something that all the state education ministers, including Liberal education ministers, have strongly supported. And it's been welcomed by the school sectors generally. The parents have welcomed it, the principals have welcomed it. The independent school sector is out there welcoming us having this data up there. And that's because it's valuable, important information in understanding how our schools are working and also informing debates in the future.
But, Minister, there are also complaints coming in from school principals, both public and private schools, saying that there are grave errors in some of this data. For example, I think the principal of Brisbane Girls Grammar says that you've overstated the school's net recurrent income by $1 million. If that's the case, mightn't there be more mistakes in the data?
The data that's on the My School 2 website has been validated and checked through a very rigorous process that's been undertaken by both ACARA, which is the body that's responsible.
So how could that principal raise that error and call it a serious mistake?
Well, let me continue. Validated as well by Deloitte on a methodology that is agreed to be the best way of reflecting that data. Now, in this case, I'm not going to comment about individual cases, but in this case, my understanding is there's a disagreement about methodology. Now, that's something that ACARA and this school can work through, but I'm absolutely confident that what you've claimed is not the case. We have 9,500 schools, Heather, in Australia. We've got more data coming onto this website than we've ever seen before, and every bit of data that's come on has been validated, checked not only by ACARA, by the department, but also by Deloitte as well.
Is the next step in all of this to show all of the school's assets, including areas of say, trust funds, especially at wealthier private schools, to give a more complete picture of what's going on?
Well, I'm committed to further transparency, and I've asked that ACARA consider that question, and I'll go to the next Ministerial Council and see whether education ministers will commission ACARA to do that work. I think it's something which we do need to look at, whether there are other additional resources that need to be displayed on the site. Let's not forget that the site is operating to provide the opportunity for parents to understand the context that their school operates in. That's the most important thing about it. There's a conversation that parents have with teachers and principals, which is a really essential part of their learning and engaging process when their kids are at school. It's also telling us how kids are travelling on the NAPLAN testing, and we'll get more and more of that information over time, and it's informing us as policymakers, given that we've got a specific commitment as a government to focusing on literacy and numeracy. We've got additional support that we're giving in terms of the national partnerships. So we find this a very, very useful tool for us to have as well. So it's serving a lot of purposes in a school system that's quite complex. It's not about arid debates that Mr Pyne has had in the past. It's not about us versus them. It's about knowing how we can provide the best education to all students, regardless of what system they're in.
And finally, Peter Garrett, the government's failed home insulation scheme once came under your old ministry. The government this week announced that there had been raids of suspected disreputable operators, which may lead to charges. Does that whole debacle weigh heavily on your mind still?
Well, the reporting that was done in relation to that matter, Heather, pointed out very clearly that I'd acted properly. These matters that have been announced subsequently are now clearly subject of operational issues, and I know Minister Combe hasn't provided any additional comment about it. Those issues should be resolved in that way, and I won't either.
Peter Garrett, we'll leave it there. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks, Heather.